if you've ever seen a pattern that has what's called a garter stitch tab at the top, what that is a point in the shawl where you have 2 strips of garter stitch for the edging running in each side. At the very top where you begin, you use a garter stitch tab so that you won't have a gap between the 2 sides. It can be a bit complicated to write, but to actually knit it, it's not actually all that hard. What I've got here is a slightly heavy yarn showing 6 rows of garter stitch worked. So you've got 1, 2, 3 ridges in the work. You've got, sometimes you might have the edges slipped. I didn't do that for this. And sometimes if you want to be completely seamless, you might begin with a provisional cast on. It's not entirely necessary with the garter stitch tab really, because you're only talking about usually 3 stitches at most, no more than 4. So what you've actually done is, it should be on this side, you've worked as far as this point with your yarn. Before you turn it around, you turn the work 90 degrees, and all that means is instead of turning around and working that way, you're going to pick up each of those 3 garter bumps here, 1, 2, 3, which is where the bottom of your shawl will come down for. And once you've done that, then you'll turn it 90 degrees again, and the 3 cast on stitches here, which are just, you can't see very clearly, but they're just along there, then you'll pick those 3 up. And so this little strip of knitting is going to form your work that will come in 3 directions when you start working your triangular shawl. So this will go one direction, these 3 stitches here will go down, and these 3 stitches here will go off in that direction as you start your increases. So to actually work those increases on the side here, just going to, I can put this one down, going to knit the first bump, then we're going to knit into the second bump, and here's the third bump. I'm going to knit to the third bump. At this point, if you were actually getting ready to start a shawl, you would probably also put in a stitch marker to mark the edge of your shawl. This is not behaving itself. It's not a very pointy needle. There we go. You would have a stitch marker here to mark this point, and you'd have another one over here. Then if you've got a circular needle, I would suggest slipping all of those down. I've just got a straight one, so it's going to look a little bit funny. But we're just going to pick up our 3 cast on stitches here. 1, tuck that down, 2, and the final one over here, 3. If you had done a provisional cast on, those would just be unpicking and putting them on. So it looks a little bit funny because you forced it into a straight line when it wants to actually be stretched out. But as you start working your shawl, this little garter stitch tab right there is going to fill in your cast on gap at the top and will create a much nicer top edge of your shawl.